Hi, welcome to Wings for Life. My name is Ann Edenfield-Sweet. I'm the Executive Director and the founder of Wings for Life International. We're in our 26th year, can't believe that. And tonight we have a wonderful guest with us. I'm very, very excited to hear about his new program. We are going to hear from Angel Garcia. And Angel has a very interesting history. He grew up in LA. He was a product of the environment out in LA, and what I mean is a negative environment. So for the years of 13 to 33, he spent time serving 4 sentences, felony convictions. He got out and he decided he wanted to make a change. He had an uncle that worked for CNM. He came out to Albuquerque. He got involved in going to school, turned his life around, and now, if you can imagine, the mayor of Albuquerque has hired him to be the social services coordinator who oversees the violence intervention program. So I'm so excited to welcome Angel Garcia to us and also to hear about this wonderful program that we have. Angel, welcome.
Thank you, Ann. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here today with you guys. Once again, I want to thank Wings for Life for giving me this opportunity. So, as Ann said, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Got into gangs, got into selling drugs, got into doing drugs. Spent most of my adult life in prison until I found the reason. And the reason for me to want to change my life was my mother. I saw another inmate. He was in his 50s and his mother passed away. And I put myself in his shoes. And being raised by a single mother, that's something that I didn't want to experience. I did not want to be in prison when something happens to my mom. So I decided to move to Albuquerque, and I was pretty much like Ann said, my uncle is a college professor and he made me go to college, and that's the best decision I've ever made in my life. So I'll start my presentation with a little activity. And those of you watching from a state penitentiary right now, this activity, you guys, it's not really for you guys, because at the end, you're going to know what I'm talking about. I want this activity to be for everybody else who hasn't been in prison so that they could empathize with somebody like myself. So just imagine you have a chalkboard. On that chalkboard, I want you to write the one accomplishment that you're most proud of in your life. I'll give you a few seconds just so that you could think of what that is. I mean, it could be buying a house, buying your car, graduating from college. Whatever that accomplishment is, write it down on the chalkboard. So now that you've thought of that accomplishment, I want you, it makes you proud, right? You're totally willing to share it with people. Let them know about your success. Now I want you to erase that chalkboard. And I want you to think of the one thing that you're most ashamed of in life that nobody knows. It might have been you stole the candy bar when you were a kid. You probably took $5 out of your mom's purse or something. Whatever you're most ashamed of, think about it and imagine you writing that on your chalkboard. Now, ask yourself, would you be willing to share that with anybody else? If anybody's in that room with you, would you turn to that person and let them know that one act that you're most ashamed of? Most of us would answer no. So now imagine having to live a life with that chalkboard dangling from your neck. That's what it feels like to be a felon. When you're a felon, nobody lets you forget that you're a felon. So your past mistakes we wear them because they don't let us forget them, And those are the obstacles that we face when we're felons. You know, when we get out of jail, we're supposed to be redeemed, but are we really? You know, they tell us you're going to go rehab yourself in prison. You're going to go pay your debt to society. But after we get out, is that debt really paid? Like, do we get afforded the opportunities that everybody else does? So they call it reintegration. How are we going to reintegrate back into society when at every turn we're reminded that we're felons? When at every turn we're denied the opportunities to reintegrate? So it's like going from locked down in one prison to being locked out in an open air prison, you know? We're still limited on everything that we could do, what we're allowed to do. Like Ann mentioned, I've done 4 prison terms, all of them in California. In California, they have these classes called reintegration classes that are given to us 30 days prior to our release. These classes are supposed to be informative. They're supposed to give us some sense of direction upon our release. The only direction they gave us was, that's the welfare office. You could go apply for GR right there. That's the only thing they ever told us. The rest of the time, 3 days, the first 10 minutes, they told us where all the general relief offices were at, and the rest of the 3 days, we spent them watching movies. So with no direction given to us, what direction are we going to go? Most of the time, we go the direction that we know how to go, which is pretty much back to criminal behavior. So I put this in my presentation because when the 13th Amendment was established to abolish slavery and involuntary servitude, there was a clause there that forced labor was permitted as a punishment. So now, in our present day, we have these private prisons, Core Civic, Geo Group. Like here in New Mexico, Geo Group has the contract, and I believe the contract states that their private prisons are supposed to stay filled to 93% capacity. If those prisons are not filled to 93% capacity, then what happens? The state of New Mexico, the taxpayers, us, we pay for those beds. So what has to be done? Those beds have to be filled, you know? And that's another obstacle to our reintegration, because the tiniest mistake will get us violated and put back in jail. So those are obstacles that we face on a daily basis. Also, they tell us, okay, you're going to go pay your debt to society, but then when we come out, they don't really let us participate in society. They won't allow us to vote. There's only 2 states in the country that allow their felons to vote: Maine and Vermont. Maine and Vermont, you could register to vote while you're incarcerated. The racial makeup of Maine and Vermont are predominantly white. 93% in Vermont, 94% in Maine. So if you're a felon in Vermont, more than likely you're a white felon and you're allowed to vote. The rest of the country, here in New Mexico, we tried legislation this year to get us our voting rights as felons, but I don't think it passed. So that's another obstacle. How are we supposed to feel part of when we don't even get the basic right to participate in our country's elections? You know, you're already telling us right there, you're not good enough to participate. Your voice doesn't matter. So how are we supposed to fully integrate ourselves? How are we supposed to feel part of? How are we supposed to feel that society is giving us that opportunity? So I always like to tell people, if a convicted felon is applying for a job, it's because he's trying to change. I could guarantee you, because I've done it before, a person knows exactly what he's going to come out and do a week before he gets released. His mind is made up already. So if you provide resources prior to that release, then you give a person a sense of direction. If you tell them that Goodwill Industries is a second chance employer, or they'll hook you up with second chance employers, now they know where to go and apply for a job. When I got here to New Mexico, I got hired by Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Ace Hardware. There was a call center here that hired me. Within a 2-week period, they all rescinded their job offer because of my background check. They all pulled the job offer. I nailed the interview because here in New Mexico, you don't have to check that box anymore. It got me the interview, but it didn't get me the job. So that's another obstacle, you know? That's a major obstacle that we face because had I been in Los Angeles, those 5 places telling me no, I would have went back to selling drugs. I would have went back to the hood and hung out with my homeboys to do what I know how to do. But since I was in Albuquerque, I had no choice but to keep trying until I found the job. And then they're not the best jobs in the world, you know? They're back-breaking for low minimum wage jobs, you know? Like, you can't raise a family on $10 an hour, you know? Those are more obstacles that they expect us to work for crumbs, you know? So, applying for apartments, you know, they run your background. If you've never had good credit because you've never really relied on the credit system, or just because you're a felon, you know, you could be denied housing. Basic human rights, housing, employment, we get shot down. So how are we supposed to feel part of society when we can't even get the basic needs we need to function in society? You know, conditions of probation and parole. When I logged on to the legislative session to talk about why we should get voting rights, why felons should get voting rights, one of the legislators said, well, probation and parole is supposed to be the period where you rehabilitate yourself and reintegrate. My answer to that was that, yeah, how are we supposed to reintegrate when they don't give us the resources to reintegrate? Yes, you're totally correct. That's supposed to be the time when we reintegrate back into society, but when we're not given the resources, when we're only given rules and demands, how are we supposed to reintegrate? Already as it is, a convicted felon doesn't do too great with authority, you know? So when you get out, instead of giving the help, a helping hand, or the resources you need, and all you get is rules, demands, and you better do this and not do that, how's that helping us? It doesn't. So the stigma too, you know, the stigma of being a felon. Like, I'll say it again, you know, by the time your prison sentence is done, you're supposed to have paid your debt to society, but society keeps reminding you, you messed up. You made a mistake. That's what it feels like. When you're a felon, you're just a walking mistake. Because they won't let you forget that you made that mistake. So, I want to talk about now changing the narrative. Especially now, the way the country seems to be going, and especially now, like I'm living proof that people like me are valuable in this type of work, in the type of work where we're dealing with people that have substance abuse issues. We're dealing with people who have criminal records. We're living with people that have had hard pasts. All of these programs need people like us because we know how it feels. You know, right now the program I work for, we have a 97% success rate, a 3% recidivism rate, where out of 190 people identified, well, now it's even less. 'Cause out of 190 people identified, only 9 have been reincarcerated. So that's more like 1% now. And they tell me it's because of the way that I interact with them. And I interact with them in a way that they know that they're used to. I don't approach them as authority. I approach them as a peer. I approach them as, hey, I've been in your shoes before, you know? I've been in prison when my family is out in the streets eating Thanksgiving dinner. I've been in that cell feeling lonely, even though we don't show it because we're supposed to be hardcore. We still get lonely in there, whether you want to admit it or not. It feels lonely. It's a dangerous situation every day. You don't know what's going to happen in there. I know what that feels like. So it's called the Violence Intervention Program. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I've been jumped. I've felt all of that. I've probably buried more than 50 of my friends. I know what that feels like. I've had friends die in my arms. I know what that feels like. So when I'm out here doing this job, I try to be for them what my uncle was for me. A person full of support and encouragement. So I always tell people, you could use your negative past to help create positive futures. When I first moved here, I was angry and I felt like I'd wasted the last 20 plus years of my life. But now, through the opportunities that I've been given, I now know that I had to go through what I had to go through in order for me to do the work that I do today. So, it's a hard road, It is hard work. It's not easy. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. just to get to class by 7. It's hard work. But if you make up your mind and don't give up, I guarantee you the payout is enormous. So the program that I work for, the Violence Intervention Program, promotes evidence-based violence reduction public health initiatives which seek to interrupt the cycles of gun violence. We also try to intervene with the victims so that we could prevent retaliations. Related trauma of violent crimes in order to reduce the incidence of homicides, shootings, and aggravated assaults. And the way this is done is in the form of custom notifications. Also, the program tries to address the trauma, individual trauma, and community trauma. Gun violence affects, the perpetrators, the victims' families, witnesses. Seeing somebody get shot, it's a traumatic experience, I read a article once in the Washington Post that said that most of the people that experience gun violence in the United States of America are men of color between the ages of 18 to 34, I believe. And it said between these group of men, there's more PTSD than the soldiers that have been in Iraq and Afghanistan these last 20 years. Why? Because, like me, my first incidents of violence that I witnessed was at 5 years old. One of my uncles got home all beat up, and my other uncle walked out the house with an AR-15 and shot the man that shot a few people. Growing up and seeing things like that, you normalize it. Those are other obstacles to ourselves, when we're trying to reintegrate. Because if all we know is violence, drugs, and that type of life, then how are we going to know what to do without giving proper resources to help us address that trauma, to help us guide us in the right direction, to let us know what is possible for us, So everybody sitting in a prison right now, I'm telling you right now, it's possible for you to get a job doing what I do. Because it's been proven that having a credible messenger, people with lived experience, goes way farther in working with somebody who's going through it than somebody that's just college educated, Somebody that has read about the life and everything we go through in a book. We've actually lived it. So they need people like us to step up, change our lives, and show other people how to do the same. So I challenge you guys. If you're sitting in a prison right now, I challenge you to reach out to me when you get out, and I'll help you. I'll do the best I can to help you get to where I'm at right now. But I will tell you this, I can't do it for you. I can just point you in the direction. You have to do all the work. And at the end of this presentation, my contact information will come out. And if you're willing and ready, then I'm willing and able. So, community trauma, there's, as we all know, economic loss. Economic loss, disruption of community networks, damage to perceptions of legal criminal justice systems, increasing cost of mental, physical health, and the effects of substance abuse. So this program, the Violence Intervention Program, it is a partnership. It's a partnership with the Mayor's Office, Albuquerque Police Department, and my department, Family and Community Services. So the way my program works is, like I said earlier, we go out and do custom notifications. These custom notifications are given to victims of gun violence, people who have been identified as drivers of gun violence, and people in their network. So obviously the people that do the identifying is Albuquerque Police Department. But so this is kind of a program, it's a new way of conducting business for APD, Instead of just trying to arrest their way out of the problem, they're actually giving me the opportunity to address the underlying root causes of why people do what they do. So if you have a drug addiction, instead of just going and locking you up, they're letting you work with me so that I could get you the help that you need. Because APD has realized that they can't arrest their way out of crime, out of anything, because if incarceration was the answer, then the United States of America would be the safest country in the world. We are the most incarcerated country in the world. So obviously we can't arrest our way out of the problem. So what do? We give people like me, people like you sitting in prison right now, the opportunity to work with other people and try to get them to see the light. So using the ethics of care, we interrupt cycles of violence by providing credible messages of nonviolence, pathways to social services, and an honorable exit from a lifestyle characterized by violence. So a custom notification, we call it that because we try to customize every visit. Every visit is different. APD has their message, and then I have my own message. APD's message, when I heard it for the first time, it surprised me, and because they're out here telling people in the community that, they care about them. They don't want to see them hurt, in jail, in prison, or dead, for that matter. And for that reason, this program was created, and then they introduced me, and I just ask one question, and I request one thing. The one question I ask of everybody is, what can I help you with? And the one request I have for them is, if you don't want my help right now, just save my number. If you need it a year from now, call me. I will help you a year from now. Because I, for one, know that people are going to change when they're ready. When they're ready to change, then reach out to me and I'll help you. So those are my only requests. So we customize the messages according to the individual's likes. Like, I'll give you an example. We had to go talk to a young man that was in a rap group. So we took a man that's an award-winning poet laureate who has friends in the music industry. We took him out with us to talk to this young man and told him, if you start working with Angel and you get focused, I'll connect you with some of my friends that are already producing, that are already rapping, that are already in studios creating music. So we try to customize each message tailor-made to each person. And we try to provide the resources that they're going to need to try to be successful in this life. So here's my contact information. If you have anything that you want me to help you with, like I said, I'll more than gladly do it. And I hope you heard something here today, especially you guys in prison. I hope you heard something here today that's going to help you guys, or I hope you guys reach out to me. So I just want to thank Ann again and Wings for Life for giving me this opportunity. thank you very much, and it was a pleasure presenting here with you today.
Wow. Thank you, Angel. I knew it was going to be powerful, and sharing your story, I think, is what is most important. For people to understand where you're coming from, where so many people are coming from. Wings for Life. I started Wings for Life because my husband went to prison, and no one understood what happened and what happened to the families and what happened to the children. That's why I started this, to try to help. And it's called Wings for Life, and the life stands for life skills imparted to families through education. We want to give you wings to fly for the rest of your life, and we want to teach you things, positive things. Angel talked about that. He talked about his recidivism rate. In our program, we've had a 4% recidivism rate. So we got to beat that. We got to do better. So we need you to come out, and we want to do even better once we can get back in person. But we're all here to help, and that peer support, there are so many programs now for people that have had problems, addiction problems, whatever, incarceration. They're called certified peer support workers, or peer support workers, or health support workers, or so many different fields. So I hope that you will contact Wings, contact Angel, because there are people that care and do want to make a change in your life and help you make that change, because again, it's up to you to make that change. If you go to our website and go into Angel's presentation, we have a placemat there. On there, we have information about his violence intervention program. We've got 8 tips about what it does and other ways that they can be of help. Now, I always close with a story, and so I'm going to close with a story. This is a Native American story, and I love this story, and it's called The Rainbow. And I knew that Angel was part of gangs, and so listen to this with thinking about gangs in mind. Once upon a time, the colors of the world started to quarrel, all claiming that they were the best, the most important, the most useful, and the most favorite. Green said, "Clearly, I am the most important. I'm the sign of life and hope. I have chosen my color for grass and trees and leaves, and without me, all the animals would die. Look over the countryside, and you will see that I am the majority." Now, Blue interrupted. "Well, you think only about the earth, but consider the sky and the sea. It is the water that is the basis of life and drawn up with the clouds by the deep sea. The sky gives space and peace and serenity. Without my peace, you all will be nothing." Now Yellow chuckled. "Oh, you are all so serious. I bring laughter and gaiety and warmth into the world. The sun is yellow, the moon is yellow, and the stars are yellow. Every time you look at a sunflower, the whole world starts to smile. Without me, there would be no fun." Now Orange started next to blow her trumpet. "Now I am the color of health and strength. I may be scarce, but I'm precious, for I serve the needs of human life. I carry the most important vitamins. Think of carrots and pumpkins, oranges, mangoes, and papayas. I don't hang around all the time, but when I fill that sky at sunset or sunrise, my beauty is so striking that no one gives another thought to any of you." Now Red could stand it no longer. Red shouted out, "I am the ruler of all. I am blood, life's blood. I am the color of danger and bravery, and I will fight for a cause. I bring fire into blood. Without me, the earth would be empty as the moon. I am the color of passion and of love, and red roses and poinsettias and the poppy." Well, next, Purple stood up to his highest height. He was very tall and spoke with great pomp. "I am the color of royalty and power. Kings, chiefs, and bishops have always chosen me, for I am the sign of authority and wisdom. People do not question me, they only listen and obey." Well, finally, Indigo spoke, much more quietly than all the others, but with just as much determination. "Think of me. I am the color of silence. You hardly notice me, but without me, you all would become superficial. I represent thought and reflection, twilight and deep water. You need me for balance and contrast, for prayer and for inner peace. And so the colors went on boasting, each convinced of his or her own superiority. Their quarreling became louder and louder, and suddenly there was a flash of bright lightning, and thunder rolled and bounced, and rain started to pour down, and the colors crouched together in fear, drawing close to one another for comfort. And in the midst of the clamor, rain began to speak. You foolish colors, fighting amongst yourselves, each trying to dominate the rest. Don't you know that you each were made for a special purpose, unique and different? Join hands with one another and come to me. Well, doing as they were told, the colors united and joined hands, and the rain continued. From now on, when it rains, each of you will stretch across the sky in a great bow of colors as a reminder that you can live together in peace. The rainbow is a sign of hope for tomorrow. And so, whenever a good rain washes the world and a rainbow appears in the sky, let us remember to appreciate one another. I think what was shared tonight was so powerful, and I hope that we take time to learn about each other, to look at each other, to listen to one another, and see how we all can blend together and make that beautiful rainbow together. Well, thanks for joining us today for Wings for Life. This will be the end of our program if you're on Facebook or YouTube, but if you're on Zoom, stay tuned because we're going to go right into a great big room, and then we'll go to breakout rooms so you could talk directly to Angel and to each other. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope to see you next week, Monday, 6 o'clock. Bye-bye.